Hi guys, welcome back. So today we've got this BMW M140i in for a stage 1 ECU remap and a round of handling upgrades. Before we get into it, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, also a notification bell, and then you won't miss whenever our new videos go live. So installing for the handling upgrades, we're going to be installing the Wavetrac limited slip differential, so moving away from the factory open differential. So we're going to be improving the rear end traction and drivability, so that's going to give you a lot of confidence behind the wheel to push the car. Really important to install LSD with sort of like stage 1 ECU remap as well, because obviously the remap's going to be increased in the horsepower and torque, and with the massive torque increase on these cars, it can really put a lot of sort of like load through the rear axle and increase the likelihood of sort of like braking traction. So the Wavetrac will complement the stage 1 upgrade quite nicely. Obviously the stage 1 upgrade will optimise in the fuel and ignition boost and all the other maps inside the ECU to improve the horsepower and torque. And then we're installing the M4 lower control arms on the front, so increasing the grip on the front axle by increasing the negative camber. And then finally we're going to be installing the underbody brace, which is a brace that fixes to the rear subframe. So a lot of complaints on these cars, customers complain that the rear end doesn't necessarily feel connected to the car, and what this does is it sort of like reinforces that and gives you a little bit more of like confidence behind the wheel that actually what you feel is what the rear axle is doing. So we're going to get the car on the dyno, we're going to benchmark the car, the standard horsepower that arrives this morning. Then we're going to get the car in the workshop, walk you through all the different parts, get them all fitted, and then head back onto the dyno, install the stage 1 ECU software, and then walk you through the graphs at the end of the video. So see you in a little bit. Okay, so you've just seen the M140i on the dyno getting the baseline run of road runs, and now we've got the M140i up on the ramps behind us, and we've got all the parts that we're going to be installing today in front of us as well. So just to recap on what we're installing the Wavetrac differential or limited slip differential exchange axle, then we've got the M4 control arms, and then we've got the underbody brace as well. So just to explain what all these parts do, sort of like the benefits and things like that. So the limited slip differential, I'm sure you're probably really familiar with already. So we've got plenty of other videos that go in depth onto the differences between the Wavetrac and other differentials in the market. But essentially the reason why you want to upgrade this is because the factory car has an open differential, and an open differential causes like severe sort of like traction issues, drivability issues, because when you're trying to accelerate, especially with a car with a lot of torque like this, you have a tendency to start to experience wheel spin. And with the factory open differential, which you've got here, once one wheel begins to spin, it starts to send all the power to that wheel. And what happens is with the standard car is that the electronics have to come on quite aggressively to slow down that freely spinning wheel. And what that feels like inside the car is nervousness from the rear end of the vehicle, and then all of a sudden sort of like an aggressive traction control intervention. So with the Wavetrac differential, it can send power to both the wheels and also to the wheel with the most amount of grip. So it makes the most of the available grip from the rear axle of the vehicle. There's videos from many people on YouTube now with drives of the cars before and after. Everyone absolutely loves it. So this is like the must-have upgrade for any rear-wheel drive car with an open differential. So what the M4 control arms do is they add around another -1 degree of camber on the front axle at each wheel. So what front camber does is when the wheel or when you turn the steering wheel, is that it puts more of the surface of the tyre in contact with the ground. And what that does is obviously you're using more of the tyre contact area with the ground. The feeling from the front end is going to be much better because you've got much more grip. So that's a massive upgrade on these cars. You can also install or take this upgrade a little bit further by installing like some PowerFlex caster arm bushes. So this then moves the suspension backwards a little bit. So adds some positive caster, which then also adds dynamic camber rather than static camber. So that can improve the front axle grip massively as well. So these two together, you get a massive improvement of front end and rear end grip. And then you've got the underbody brace here and some of the parts that go with fitting it. And one of the most common complaints on these cars, alongside sort of like the lack of traction and a weak front end, is that the subframe feels like it's not really connected to the vehicle. So with the underbody brace, what it does is it basically reinforces the subframe to sort of like the center of the vehicle, and it puts up a little bit more resistance to the subframe moving around. So it's similar to installing like some like aftermarket bushes, whereby like you reduce the movement of the parts, and then as a driver you feel a lot more of sort of like a positive connection to the vehicle. So we're going to get all these parts fitted, and then we will sort of like show you the installation process, get the car on the dyno a little bit later on, install the Stage 1 ECU software, and also talk you through the graphs. So hope you enjoy the video. Okay, so we're back on the dyno. So we've finished off installing the Wavetrac diff, the subframe brace, and the M4 low control arm. So all the grip upgrades installed, and we've just finished installing the RSS Custom Stage 1 ECU software. So the Stage 1 ECU software optimizes like the fuel and ignition boosts, all the other maps inside the ECU to increase the power, torque, and drivability. This particular car is running 95 octane fuel as opposed to what we recommend, like Shell V-Power, like 98. And what that does is it means that we can't really optimize the ECU as much. We can't sort of like increase the boost or the ignition to levels that we can with the 98 when you're running the 95. So the power and torque is going to be limited a little bit on this particular vehicle, but we'll run through the graphs that we've got behind me. So the dotted lines are the car as it arrived this morning, and then the solid lines as the car is leaving us today, with the blue lines being the torque and the red lines being the horsepower. So standard, this car made about 348 horsepower and 400 foot-pounds of torque, and then it's leaving us today with new peak figures of 419 horsepower and 444 foot-pounds. As you see behind me, significant gains all the way across the rev range. It's actually now making around another 70 horsepower at 6,050 RPM and 60 foot-pounds at 6,050 RPM as well. So massive, massive gains within the rev range. And then this particular car is now making the stock peak power of 348 horsepower, about 1,750 RPM sooner, down all the way at 4,400 RPM. So the car is going to be a completely night and day different car to drive, with the ECU software optimized, and then with the increased grip at the front of the rear car and more stability at the rear end with the subframe brace as well. So going to hand the keys over to the customer for him to enjoy, and I hope you enjoyed the video as well. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, then please give us a thumbs up. If you'd like to watch other videos of ours that YouTube thinks you'll like, then click up here. If you'd like to watch some other videos that we have in the same playlist, then click here. And obviously, if you enjoyed the video, then we really appreciate if you gave us a subscription. And then obviously you'll be updated when other videos of ours go live, and you can do that quite easily by clicking here. Hope to see you soon.